What if I told you most of the change you see around you didn't start in a government office, didn't start with a minister, and didn't start with someone powerful? It started with you, with ordinary people solving ordinary problems. And that is what today's video is about. Stay till the end, because by then you may never look at power, progress, or credit the same way again. Time changes everything, sometimes slowly, sometimes faster than we expect. But one thing remains constant: change itself. Yet, when change finally becomes visible, we often see people at the top taking credit for it: ministers, politicians, people in power. But here's the uncomfortable truth: most changes were already inevitable, long before anyone signed a document or gave a speech. Things fall into place not because someone allowed them to, but because society demanded them. There's a saying: necessity is the mother of invention. That same principle applies to social change. People face problems. People look for solutions. People experiment, fail, improve, and try again. That's how progress begins. Not at the top of the pyramid, but at the bottom, with vision, frustration, and need. The problem is, we're trained to look upward for credit instead of inward for responsibility. Take technology. I didn't appear overnight. It started decades ago. Small ideas, limited hardware, slow adoption, or take digital payments. There was a time when online transactions were rare, risky, and almost unbelievable. Payments stored on floppy drives, early e-commerce experiments. Amazon didn't become what it is because someone powerful decided it should. It happened because people wanted convenience, access, and speed, anytime, anywhere. Websites, cloud data, mobile access, these weren't luxuries. They were responses to human demand. People face problems. People look for solutions. People experiment, fail, improve, and try again. That cycle, again and again, is how progress truly begins. Not at the top of the pyramid, but at the bottom, driven by vision, frustration, and necessity. Take Thomas Edison. He didn't invent the incandescent bulb on his first attempt, or his 10th, or his 100th. It took over 1,000 attempts. And when asked about his failures, Edison famously said he hadn't failed. He had simply discovered thousands of ways that didn't work. Each failure wasn't an end. It was a step closer to what eventually worked. That mindset, persistence, learning, and iteration, is the foundation of every meaningful breakthrough we benefit from today. Now contrast that with how power often works. Many people who rise to the top of political or institutional hierarchies don't get there because they are inventors, builders, or long-term visionaries. Often, power is acquired through strategy, negotiation, alliances, survival, and sometimes by outlasting or outperforming rivals. Leadership, in many cases, is less about creating ideas and more about managing outcomes. That's why those in power rarely work alone. They rely on teams: advisors, experts, technologists, economists, planners, people whose job is to think deeply, experiment quietly, and solve complex problems away from the spotlight. And in some parts of the world, the system itself allows individuals at the top who may not represent the most educated or ethically ideal profiles, but who understand how to navigate power structures. The problem is, when success finally appears, credit often flows upward, while the years of effort, learning, and failure at the ground level remain invisible. Progress doesn't come from authority alone. It comes from persistence, from people willing to fail repeatedly in pursuit of something better. Here's what usually happens next. A change starts quietly. Few notice it. Many contribute to it. Millions eventually benefit from it. Then comes capital, then business, then politics. Money flows. Power follows. And suddenly, those at the top appear to be the drivers, when in reality they're often responding, not leading. Sometimes they drive change. Sometimes they're driven by it, but rarely do they start it. So here's the takeaway. Stop giving all the credit to those at the top of the pyramid of power, wealth, or authority. Because without people demanding better systems, without users pushing boundaries, without individuals refusing to accept this is how it's always been, nothing moves. The problem is not leadership alone. The problem is forgetting our own role in shaping society. Progress doesn't begin with permission. It begins with participation. You are not just witnessing change, you are creating it. And the moment we truly understand that is the moment society actually becomes great.